In the beginning.
I think we can all agree that SquareEnix hasn't made the best decisions in recent years. Don't get me wrong, there is success that should be praised, but over the last 15 years or so, this company has seen its reputation nosedive. And when you look at their output, it isn't really surprising. From Final Fantasy XV, all the way to their latest release in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the term divisive often comes up in the conversation. While many love and appreciate these games, there's a not-so-vocal minority who looks at them as the sole reason Square isn't regarded as the same industry juggernaut they grew up with. It doesn't help that this company places the most unrealistic expectations on their titles, but even still, clearly something, somewhere in the chain of command is wrong, and should it continue, I worry what the future has in store for some of my favorite series. The signs clearly tell us change is coming. A brand new president who hasn't been behind the wheel of a major AAA release yet, a reformed strategy that doesn't include releasing multiple B-scale projects within days of each other, a focus on quality rather than quantity. Yet, I still find myself worried. As many of you know, I've looked over quite a bit of this stained chapter in Square Enix's legacy on this channel, and while there was a glimmer of hope in the form of Final Fantasy XVI, overall, I wouldn't say I've enjoyed my time with these games very much. I wouldn't say any of them ruined my image of the company, but that isn't really saying much. And when I think of rising costs in game development, I can't help but shudder to think what mistake this company is going to make next. But then I remember a decision they made nearly a decade ago that fills me with optimism. It is universally loved by pretty much anyone who's played it, and it's a title that has garnered critical acclaim seemingly out of nowhere. Yet, if you're in the know, you'll realize that this wave was predestined.
Alert. High power jamming detected. No response from long-range communications.
Doesn't matter. I'll just take him out.
I think this is going to come to the surprise of literally nobody when I say, and I can confidently say that yeah, NieR Automata might be one of the greatest games ever made. Back-to-back positive videos? Snackago, you shouldn't have! It's a game that's so different yet still feels familiar for those entrenched in the anus of Square Enix, and for a lot of reasons is one of the most important games they've ever released. Bold claim, I know, but you're gonna want to stick with me on this one. The year is 2017. At the proverbial turning point of HD gaming when the focus for AAA was trying to make games look as realistic as they could, here came Automata, a Japanese as heck looking game that provided a jolt the industry didn't know it needed. Instead of putting its focus on facial animations and texture quality, it puts its focus on polish, overall animation, and deep and rich storytelling. When you look at the industry today and see the types of games that are most popular with players, one could argue NieR Automata was at the forefront of this revolution. But I think I'm getting too ahead of myself. Forgive me for the showman that I am. I wanted to properly set the stage this game deserves. You may be wondering what my whole point is, and that's a fair question to ask. It's not like people haven't made their feelings on this one known, and for a long time, I was cool with just letting the narrative of this game's perception be as it is. Even if I did have something to say at the time, for some reason I wasn't able to. Fellow creatives, I'm sure you can understand. Ever have something you wanted to make but for some reason or another you just couldn't? Whether it's writing, directing, painting, or anything really. Sometimes a project you really want to work on becomes an obstacle that swells over you, to a point where you eventually say, yeah, I think I'll just move on to something else. Out of everything I've worked on during my time making videos, nothing has quite stumped me like NieR Automata has. Stumped for good reasons, mind you. It's a game brimming with so many qualities. There's almost too much to talk about here. But as NieR Automata celebrates its 8th year in the market, God, it's been almost 10 years. I am so old. But as NieR Automata celebrates another milestone year, it's only now where I finally found the words to describe just how important this game is. Now, before we jump in here, there's a few disclaimers I need to address. I know, I don't like giving them either, but with this game especially, I'll be paying it as much respect as I can. So here's your one and only spoiler warning for the video. I will be going deep into anything and everything I can in NieR Automata. Not just Automata actually, I'll even be going into the first game a bit as well. NieRReplicant version 1.2247... Alright, you get it. Yeah, did you know that Automata is actually a sequel to Replicant? That then raises its own question. Why talk about Automata before talking about the first game? Well, for one, NieR Automata technically came out before the most recent version of Replicant, which has been adjusted to fit more in line with Automata's design. And second, I just really wanted to play NieR Automata again, alright? I don't need to justify myself here. Sometimes there doesn't need to be some existential reason for wanting to play a video game. The only other thing I want to mention is that I am well aware of this game's legacy. I understand just how important this game is not only to the industry, but also to you, the fans watching. I'm just an obnoxious YouTuber trying to share that same love with all of you. I don't want the weight of that to be forgotten because yeah, I have a lot I want to say. Most of it good. Very good, in fact. Some of it though may come off as miserable criticism. I don't want anything I have to say to come off with the bias we get for trying to be honest on our feelings with the games we talk about. This game means so much to me that I've gone out of my way to avoid friends, family, potential lovers even to spend time putting this together. Like, I don't know man, what more do you want from me? At a time where SquareEnix found themselves at a crossroads, NieR Automata swooped in and reminded everyone what exactly made this company so special to begin with. And while it may not have realized it at the time, it also rescued an industry destined to fall into a state of monotony. Enough teasing. Let's just dive into this shit.
Absolute beauty.
Everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse? Or some kind of punishment? I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle, and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
This is Command. Your house squadron, come in.
What the fuck? Okay, so I know you must probably be wondering, what the hell is going on? Isn't this like an action walkie kinda game? Can't really blame you as NieR Automata boldly opens with what I think is a shooter section inspired by Gradius? Yeah, I don't know either, fam. Now at this point you're probably thinking that this is pretty lame, and you're frustrated because you're not doing the cool advertised slashing and stuff, but to those familiar with the work of series creator YokoTaro, know that this is all calculated. As you begin your assault, you'll notice a few things. For one, the story is interweaved directly with the gameplay. Yeah, your flight unit isn't moving until YoRHa command or whatever grants you permission to use your arsenal. And two, you'll notice the use of a variety of game designs that interweave between themselves seamlessly. 1 minute you're in an over-the-top perspective, next it's the same, but you've mechanized into this Gundam looking thing and you get full 360-degree control. Then you're back in the plane shooting things from a side perspective. And hell, here's an on-rails section for you. Why not? For many, these are details that you'll overlook because nothing is fundamentally changing. However, for someone who has thousands of hours spread across all the Star Fox games, these are details I can appreciate. Mowing down everything in your path and proceeding doesn't sound too complicated, but with the perspective and even characters themselves constantly shifting, it keeps the entire section feeling fresh. And through its on-rail sections offer a moment of euphoria as a way of saying, hey, you did it! I don't even care what's happening narratively because I'm just so focused on the little aspects that make this feel wholly unique. That's not something I often say in my videos. A lot of the games I play are pretty by the book in terms of the intro, so to start off in such a different way is definitely welcome. Eventually though, you do find your way on your feet with your character, Battle Unit 2B, and here's where the actual game can begin. After slicing your way through a few machine grunts, 2B rendezvous with Scanner Unit 9S. See, these guys are androids created by the YoRHa division of mankind to help win back the Earth from the machine life forms. As such, the androids are manufactured in different models so they can achieve multiple goals. A scanner, for example, provides logistical support and researches field data to assist the battle units in their struggle against the machines. At the present moment, it looks like 2B and 9S are in the middle of a mission to destroy a Goliath-class unit. After searching the factory for the target, 2B is ambushed by said Goliath unit, which culminates in a spectacular battle, really showcasing just a few of the many strengths NieR Automata has. You gotta remember, this was the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One generation of consoles. HD gaming was in full swing at this point, and NieR Automata was taking full advantage of the rather shoddy hardware. Tie this into its predecessor's re-release and it becomes even more impressive. Listen, I'm glad there is a version of Replicant that exists that isn't the original PS3 dad model, but when it comes to overall feel, it's not even close. As you transition from 2B to 9S for each scripted sequence, it just feels so smooth. It's deliberate and yet not jarring. There's a confidence that's on display that I can't help but admire. It's almost like the dev team wanted to flex early to show people what this, let's face it, niche game has to offer. And when you take a look at said development, this introduction makes a lot of sense. While SquareEnix are credited with publishing NieR Automata, the main development was actually handled by Platinum Games. Okay, so I know by today's standards, Platinum is often associated with some sketchy business decisions, but it wasn't that long ago where Platinum were seen as sleeper hit developers, usually crafting some of the slickest action games you'd see. The stuff going on in Automata's introduction isn't exactly too far outside their wheelhouse, and honestly, acts as a symbol to let you know whose game you're actually playing. Again, it's a bold way to open things, but one I can't help but respect. After defeating the Goliath-class unit, 2B checks on the injured 9S after he sacrificed his body to save her earlier. You know, for these things being androids and all that, I have to say, I am pretty surprised at how much emotion they're showing. 2B is like really upset at the thought of losing 9S, but even he says that they can just re-upload a version of himself to another body. Pretty odd for 2B, who seems so stoic otherwise, to react in such a way. Before they can escape, the two are surrounded by multiple Goliath-class units, leaving 2B and 9S to make the ultimate sacrifice. By combining the black box, the core of an android's being with another, a reaction will occur, causing an explosion the size of a nuke to set off, destroying anything within its vicinity. The screen fades back in space, and as the camera pans out, we see 2B staring upon the stars. Eventually, she runs back into 9S, and at this point, something very unique occurs. As you interact with your brightness and audio settings, you realize the diegetic nature of the UI. These aren't just settings for you, the player. It's for the android you control and how they'll see the world around them. Is it this revolutionary, groundbreaking thing? No, of course not. But it's a very considerate thing to add that I think is just so freaking cool, man. Isn't this medium to a certain extent about immersion? When you look at other games, you can't help but feel like it's details like this that's missing. Before I continue, I think I need to talk more about the creative, genius? Yeah, we'll go with genius. Behind NieR Automata, YokoTaro. So how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? YokoTaro is a bit of a weirdo. The video game developer who famously became known as the guy who wears an oversized mask to every interview is one I found myself quite fond of over recent years. He's just very blunt and unconventional, not really sugarcoating the reasons as to why he does things the way he does. Researching him for any sort of video is always such a treat because you honestly never know what you'll get out of the guy. Maybe it's the guy's aura or something, but I found the dynamic between interviewer and interviewee to be quite odd. Take for instance this interview with French outlet Point and Think. When asked about what he looks for when creating a game, Taro replies,
"There are many goals, but the most important for me is to do something I don't hate and that I enjoy. I'd say the goal isn't necessarily to do what I want to do."
Pretty standard, if not a bit basic. But then you keep reading and the questions start getting weirder. When asked what the meaning of life is for himself and whether or not he found our existence absurd, Taro says,
"I think that our lives have no meaning whatsoever and that our existence is profoundly absurd. Having said that, I must confess that I'm not ready to yet accept the world as it is, and I intend to keep trying to change it."
I could pick quotes out from just this one interview, but I think you get it. Who asked something like that in an interview about a video game? It's just such an odd and personal question to ask, yet YokoTaro states his answer with no issue. While he is kind of an oddball, YokoTaro is a creator who is widely revered not just in this industry, but worldwide. That article I referenced was only from last year, 7 years after Automata's release. How many games and creators have that kind of pull? Not many, I'll tell you that much. The overall point with this tangent here is that weird, off-putting personality of Taro's reflects in his works directly, culminating in moments like this where even setting the game up is quote-unquote real in this universe. I just think it's really cool, and it doesn't have to be there. When you regain control of 2B, her and 9S briefly go over the events of the previous mission, with 9S stating he doesn't remember anything due to not uploading his memory unit to the YoRHa network before the explosion. As the two acknowledge each other with the YoRHa salute, the cryptic method the story opts for starts to piece together. The year 5012 AD is when humanity's reign on Earth came to an end. Aliens equipped with machine life forms invaded the planet, decimating nearly all of humanity, forcing the few survivors left to escape to the surface of the moon. In 5024 AD, those few survivors launched a counterattack, sending dozens of waves of androids to reclaim the Earth, yet to no avail. YoRHa exists for one reason only, to reclaim the Earth from the machine lifeform invaders who nearly annihilated humanity. They exist for the glory of mankind. And with that, our basic premise is now set. This was honestly such a strong way to start the game, which is pretty crazy for me to say considering that nothing I'd usually look for was here at all. We opened with random tribute to an old arcade game, then to random fights with sentient machines, only for it to end with our characters quite literally killing themselves. A lot happened so quickly and it's hard to keep up with. On top of the weird presentation in almost any other instance, this would be a recipe for disaster. But here, I'm afraid if the game opened up any other way, it would be doing a disservice for how unique it actually is. It's about separating the art from the creator and how I think it's not really possible with this game. This introduction is so unapologetically YokoTaro. From the weird UI tricks to the gameplay, it's all crafted in such a deliberate way that it'll leave its mark and then some. I mean, here I am gushing all about it. A game's introduction is so important. If it doesn't grab you right away, then it risks being tossed aside. NieR Automata not only understands this, but plays with this concept, giving you something you didn't even know you wanted. You go through so many games nowadays, and it's the same thing. Open with CGI cutscene, characters monologue with each other, and a big cataclysmic event occurs, and then boom, the journey actually starts. The same thing over and over again. While I enjoy a lot of these titles, the sameness of their storytelling methods sometimes make them blend together. But NieR Automata? Nah, I'll never forget this. Name me another game that opens with such confidence. Go on, try. I dare you. It's too unique to be compared to its contemporaries. Not only that, it's actually pretty fun and engaging in its own right. It's rare a game grabs me this quickly when I virtually have no idea what's going on. Combine that with the interesting and smooth gameplay and what you have is an introduction that perfectly sets the expectations for the players. This ain't going to be your usual action RPG. Once 2B and 9S meet up with the commander, they are given their next assignment. Rendezvous with the resistance camp on the surface and scout and survey the area until further instructions come through. After a short trip down to the surface and some flight units, the two androids find themselves in the ruins of an old city. Naturally, you're probably going to derp around for a bit due to the fact the area around you is significantly more open and acclimate yourself to how 2B feels to move and control. This probably doesn't sound too important right now, but as you're going through what are otherwise mundane tasks, you begin to notice something. As you almost peer away your way up and over buildings, something begins to click and you realize, wow, this game feels amazing to play. Game feel is a very difficult concept to explain over a YouTube video. It can be challenging to really find the words to explain how good something feels to do. I mean, I could just sit here and just be like, oh my god, look at how smooth everything is and the graphics, wow, look at all the sharp textures. But what I'm talking about goes deeper than that. How it feels to move your character around and how they engage with the level design around you. If we can keep it real for a second, SquareEnix for the most part doesn't really excel in this area. Not to say that their games don't feel good to move around in, they're just not specialists in that regard. NieR Automata, on the other hand, is in a class of its own. 2B's double jump feels just right. Her dodge smoothly transitions into her sprint. Everything feels so considered in a way most games don't, especially nowadays. It never gets old just grabbing the ledge and watching 2B vault herself up with such ease. Combine that with the absolute god tier animation at work here, and what you have is arguably one of the most polished video games ever put together. That isn't hyperbole, and no, I haven't lost my mind. Just look at some of the stuff that's happening as you move around or bash some monsters. Look at the absolute swagger 2B moves with when she does literally anything. This is a rather small thing to compliment, but one that can't go without mentioning because it's one of those little things that enhances the overall experience in an almost subconscious way. Realizing it as you play provides an even deeper level of enjoyment. This is going to sound really stupid, but I've been wanting to say this for years. The way 2B stylishly exits ladders when you reach the top. Wow. This is unnecessarily swaggy for absolutely no reason. Like, why? Why is this the coolest thing ever? There's always a moment where I know I fuck with a game. Usually it's a cutscene or a cool moment in combat, but in NieR Automata, it was this shit. Again, it's just another little flex, and it fits so perfectly with the whole Android narrative. Whether or not it's optimal is irrelevant. They were designed to be better than humanity to a certain extent, and instead of telling us that, it's integrated into gameplay seamlessly. I'm a huge sucker for little details, and this game is chock full of them, but this can only go so far. If what you're actually doing isn't fun, then all these fancy animations don't really serve any purpose other than to be window dressing, which is my clever segue to discuss the first major gameplay aspect of NieR Automata, the combat.
Heavy damage. Standard activating short-range attack gear.
Something I want to bring up before we dive into this properly is that I opted to play this game on the standard difficulty. This isn't a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but there is one distinction between this and the harder difficulties that's worth noting. If you choose to play on hard, or the one-hit kill difficulty, you will be unable to manually lock onto enemies. This is kinda whack, not gonna lie. I appreciate the brutal nature of these modes, but seriously? Removing a core aspect of combat? Isn't that just a little much? I understand this is an artistic choice made by the creator, but come on. That's just a really silly thing to take out. The more difficult option should provide a more interesting and engaging challenge that comes with risk. But this just makes the game more annoying to play. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I just think for how accessible this game is, this is a minor blunder. As for the combat itself, well. Yeah, it's pretty good. Seeing as this is Platinum we're talking about here, what we're working with is a real-time action hack and slash focused on being as stylish as possible. Looking at your moveset here, things aren't very complicated. Standard light combo tied to a normal weapon, a heavy attack tied to a larger weapon, and your dash doubles as a dodge. Fairly simple, and I like it. There aren't any sort of set combos beyond just mashing the corresponding attack button until your sword returns to you. So it's not like you're going to be pulling off all these crazy things you would in another action game. Maybe I'm explaining this wrong. Let me try again. It's not like there aren't opportunities to do cool things. That isn't what I'm trying to say. Just compare this game to another developed by this company, Bayonetta. Each attack on their own doesn't hold much weight, but when you start combining them, you can pull off some devastating attacks. These are better known as dial-up combos. Inputting punch kick punch gives Bayonetta a unique function. However, this won't only activate when you input that specific combination. NieR Automata is a lot less restrictive in this regard. It opts to have its combat feel looser and have less established rules than your typical action game, prioritizing experimentation above all else. Maybe go for a string of continuous light slashes to take your enemy out, but that might not be enough to stagger them. So then you start adding your heavy attack into the mix and things begin to click. Rather than focus on providing action in the raw sense of the inputs you're putting in, NieR Automata decides to take a different approach. While what you're doing isn't particularly difficult to pull off, the challenge comes from using the rules the game taught you earlier as you were traversing around to find and keep your flow state going. I talk about this a lot in my videos because, even if it's happening subconsciously, it's one of the core aspects of action games that make them as appealing as they are. or at least I think so anyways. Reaching the zone, as it were, isn't too difficult in NieR Automata. The fluid nature of the game makes it almost instantaneous when a battle starts. This is usually the hardest part of finding the flow. Finding the moment where the thoughts in your head start to melt away and all your actions happen instinctively. So rather than having the challenge come from finding that moment, here it's all about maintaining that flow. You might have noticed the entire screen kind of glitch out when you take damage. As jarring as it can be sometimes, it acts like a reset. You'll be engrossed with the moment-to-moment gameplay that when you finally do get hit, it's like a wake-up call. As essential as this is for the type of combat Automata opts to go for, it can be kind of annoying to have everything come to a halt as soon as you take one hit. But that's when it all comes together. It makes that one-hit kill difficulty make more sense. You don't want to take damage. You don't want the flow to come to an end. It's all about timing your moves with as much precision as you can muster to keep the combo going. And when you look at it from this perspective, a lot of the other elements make a lot of sense. Take for instance when you perfectly dodge an enemy's attack. All that really happens is 2B flashes out of existence for a second and then reappears and attacks depending on which button you input. On one hand, it keeps the pace of the fight going and is as polished as the rest of the game, so I definitely like that. But on the other hand, it's just not very engaging. Since there's such little feedback, it doesn't feel that good to pull off. Compare this to Witch Time in Bayonetta. Before time stops, the game briefly slows down. There's audio feedback, and typically Bayonetta will utter a phrase before the move fully activates. You know exactly when you activated Witch Time because all those little elements perfectly convey the maneuver to the player. Plus, it just feels amazing to pull off. But that's entirely the point. The perfect dodge in NieR Automata's case doesn't just act as a way to counter your opponent, but it's also your key to opening up the rest of the mechanics. Let's say you get a perfect dodge, right? Well, if you input a light attack immediately after, you'll send the enemy you dodged into the sky, giving you a chance to execute a quick air combo. Or if you hit the heavy attack button, you'll respond to the enemy's assault with a heavy attack of your own. You see what I'm getting at? The perfect dodge here might not be as flamboyant as some other games, but it's still an essential tool in your arsenal. As cool as all this is, however, I'm still a little out of my element here. I'm used to mechanics like this, but here it's more unorthodox than what I'm used to. So why is that? Why are things so familiar but I'm feeling that itty bitty difference? Well, I think that's because there is no arena setting in NieR Automata. I know that doesn't make much sense right now, so just stick with me on this. Usually in this genre, you'll find yourself enclosed in a little arena where the game transitions from world traversal to combat mode, separating the two entirely. There isn't anything inherently wrong with this, but what it does is clearly define what is what. Just take a look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example. In that game, while you're out exploring, you can't even so much as swing your sword more than a single time to break nearby boxes. But when you approach some enemies, an invisible wall forms around you and boom, it's go time. It's fine, but it really limits the overall experience considering the beautiful landscapes you'll be traversing. NieR Automata doesn't fall into this trap and allows you to use the entire landscape as your playground, and you can tell this wasn't an accident. Some enemy placements are in some odd locations, meaning you'll have to get pretty creative with how you engage with the enemies. Which brings me to one of the more unique aspects of this game's combat, the weird little thing that's been floating with me the entire time. You've probably been wondering what this is. This is your tactical support unit Pod 042, and he's packing way more than his appearance suggests. Each pod comes equipped with two separate attacks similar to 2B, though it primarily acts as your long-range option. There's a decent variety of options at your disposal, and the combat takes a shift, asking you to balance between using ranged or melee attacks. Is what I would say if not for one crucial difference. You can actually attack using both methods of damage at the same time. There is no need to choose one over the other. Why I appreciate the simplicity of NieR Automata's combat is for shit like this. This is a detail that in any other game would be overlooked, and it forces you into making a decision you don't really need to. Again, on the surface, this isn't really that big of a deal, but when you become conscious of it, you appreciate the design at a whole different level. Tying the pod's weapons to the shoulder buttons is just so brilliant. It makes use of the entire controller while also still feeling comfortable enough to pull off. Now, I can definitely see the argument of, well, if you can use ranged attacks, why risk attacking at close range? And yes, exactly. That's the beauty of having what we like to call options. It adds more to your repertoire, making the combat not only more diversive, but overall just more fun. I mean, just look at what's happening on screen. Are you not entertained? It's just so frantic in the best way, and the visual feedback is the icing on the cake. I am shocked that this is running even close to 60 frames a second. Considering the time this game released and the state of its PC port, it's remarkable at how smooth everything looks and feels when everything's in motion. Like I said when we started, it's simple, yet it's effective. It's aiming to capture a different feeling than your typical action game, and every mechanic is tailored to that. It wants to focus on the feel rather than what you're doing. It's pretty awesome that a fully upgraded light sword can attack 7 times in a row, but just the thought of mashing one button like that is jarring in and of itself. Well, that's where our old friend dodge offset makes its glorious entrance. Like I've mentioned in the past, this mechanic is one that often isn't mentioned when people talk about action games. It's very much a blink and you'll miss it type action that only those chosen can interact with. Simply put, it's a maneuver you can input in the middle of a combo to cancel it, giving you an opportunity to reassess things based on the moment-to-moment gameplay. In the middle of a combo and a machine is going to bash your neuron sensor in? No problem. Just dodge at the optimal time and restart your chain of attacks. Like any well-designed action game should have, it gives me the nuanced decision to either press my attack or back off and approach from a different angle. At some point you will get overwhelmed, so allowing the player to make meaningful split-second decisions themselves just makes the combat feel all that bit sweeter. When you're in the thick of it, dodging and weaving your way through enemies in between your slashes while your pod is firing its laser repeatedly, you start to understand why things are the way they are. This isn't a game that's built on one core mechanic. It's the culmination of these things put together that make them greater than the sum of its parts. Like the pod, for example. It isn't very difficult to activate and eventually becomes a really easy way to cheese fights if you want, but it can and is so much more with thoughtful application. Since I can lock on targets, unleashing a barrage while I'm firing away at the enemy is but an easy task. Now take a look at the perfect dodge. On its own, it is pretty cool, but when you remember you have dodge offset in your back pocket, it almost becomes a cheat code. It almost seems unfair to be able to dodge everything at the final millisecond, but it's something you can do with ease after enough time. As I've made it pretty clear by now, NieR Automata's combat builds on itself and takes something simple and allows you to apply it in a variety of ways to mow down your enemy. And for the most part, it's pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Alright, look. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I need to be honest. The combat here is kind of just okay. There's a lot of cool things to do, and experimentation is bountiful in NieR Automata, but going through it again for this video, I found myself massively underwhelmed. Probably because I noticed a few more flaws this time around. Alrighty, where do I start? I don't think the combat is as deep as it could be. When you look at what we have and how you can apply it on paper, there's a decent amount of stuff to work with. When you add in other elements like weapon and pod upgrades, there shouldn't feel like there's a lack of options, right? Wrong! Besides doing more damage, each weapon upgrade only adds an extra attack in your chain. That sounds really cool at first, until you realize it's just adding an extra button press. It's not like the combo itself will change or new combos will unlock, just an extra attack you probably won't get to because you'll be too busy dodging. It's just kinda lame? When you see how 2B moves around, it's almost a shame this game's combat isn't more complicated. Everything feels so calculated in a way that under different conditions, things could have been different. I'm not ignorant enough to not understand why this is. Obviously, if you want a lot of people to play your game, you need to make it accessible, and usually that means dumbing it down so everyone has a chance to experience it. And that's fine. But for action veterans like me, it's kind of hard to find the challenge when there's a clear strategy to win. It's not just an issue with the standard difficulty, by the way. I tried playing this game on hard at first and everything I was worried about came true. It was just way more annoying to play without an auto lock, and all the hard mode really did was give the enemies more health and deal more damage. That makes a lot of sense with NieR Automata's design philosophy, but it's not one I can get behind. It's really a shame because the elements to have a deep, engaging system that keeps you coming back for more are there, but for some reason or another aren't explored enough. You're telling me I have a flying pod at all times that can machine gun enemies and that's it? Yes, there is another skill that you can actually customize with your pod, but honestly, these don't feel nearly as impactful as the standard laser shot or slashing with your weapons. And considering some of their cooldown times, they can just be annoying to use for such little return. At the end of the day, whenever you go and attack something, more often than not, you're going to stick to the things you know are going to win you the battle, while dodging in between. I had an affinity towards aerial combat myself, so I opted to launch my enemies into the air mostly. And it's fun at first. Really fun, in fact. But at some point, the combat just starts to blend together. Maybe that's on me for not exploring many of the builds you could hypothetically make with the pretty absurd character customization. But even still, I just don't think the combat should feel this basic. I want to make it clear I still had a lot of fun with NieR Automata from this perspective. It's just addicting to become mesmerized as you dance around your opponents before bringing them to their demise. The level of detail that's on display and the fact it's put together so well are things that should be praised. But it's kind of awkward when you realize that the method of achieving such stylish combat is easier than inputting a Hadouken in Street Fighter. It kind of takes you out of it a little. For a game that focuses on flow, it's weird how antithetical it actually feels to pull off. And it gets even weirder when you realize that the combat this time around was mainly developed by Takehisa Tora. It's odd when you look at some of the other stuff he'd end up working on in the future like Astral Chain, because here it feels a lot more reserved. The only reason I can find is this quote from an interview with Game Informer a few years ago after Automata's release, where he talks about how the game was designed so both newcomers and experienced nuts like myself can enjoy it.
Saito-san from SquareEnix told us when the project started that, since the original NieR has a lot of female fans and a lot of non-action gamer fans, to make the game as fun and accessible as possible to people who aren't accustomed to playing difficult action games.
Not really a complicated process to follow in theory, but I highlight it because it's always irked me to no end. Like, why do games need to be tailored to everyone? Why can't we make cool games that are challenging and force players to improve if they want to see it through? Because there are games out there that know how to kick my ass. So during this insanely long hiatus of mine, I decided to dabble in a little game called Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. And I don't mean to oversell here, but it quickly became the barometer for every action game to follow. It has its own take on stylish combat, empowering you with each execution of your technique. And considering this is a FromSoft game, you can bet your sweet ass this game is hard as balls. With the core combat focused around parrying your enemy's attacks, the combat feels very fast, barely giving you a chance to breathe. One wrong move and sayonara, that's it for you. As you perfectly parry each attack, you'll notice a secondary bar start to fill up. Once this stagger meter, as it were, fills up, you get the opportunity to end the fight in one fell swoop. It doesn't matter how much health the enemy has. If you break their posture, it's game over. This is where Sekiro becomes truly legendary. It gives you a clear goal to work towards while still making it challenging. I don't think I can properly convey how difficult it is to parry 6, sometimes even 7 or 8 attacks in a row with English words, or any other language I know for that matter. And you're gonna fail, a lot. Just the nature of these things. Yet it isn't discouraging, and through each attempt you literally feel the improvement. Eventually you'll get to a point where you're perfectly parrying each and every boss. The concept itself is very simple, yet it's through its execution where the true sauce lies. It's because of its brutal nature that I keep coming back for more. If it were any easier, none of this would be memorable. But because I had to earn the win, it made each and every moment unforgettable. I can't shake the feeling that NieR Automata would be so much cooler than it already is if combat had a bit more depth to it. This is my bread and butter, and I'd love to get deeper into it, but I can't. There's a certain enjoyment level it'll reach, and that's really it. I realize that no matter which way I slice it, most of you are just going to think I don't like the combat after hearing all this, but there isn't much more I can say. It's really fun in moments, but it gets really repetitive really fast. Maybe I was just playing the game wrong. Who knows? Getting back on track from earlier, once 2B and 9S complete a few quests for the leader of the resistance camp, they are sent on a mission to stop rogue machine lifeforms in the desert zone. As the two androids make their way to each group, 2B notices the lifeforms begging for their lives. With each encounter, the machine lifeforms become more rabid, which is very unsettling. Think about what you know about something like a robot. Regardless of what you think of them, universally, the term cold can be applied here. They are designed to not have emotion, to be fully impartial and look at the world from a purely objective lens. Even in video games, robots are usually very detached, and besides the cheesy "uh-oh" when you defeat them, rarely if ever do they showcase emotion. But here, it's very uncomfortable to be gunning away at a machine life form and to hear it say "ow" over and over again until it's destroyed. Seeing as how they kind of won the 14th machine war and all, it makes sense too. We, the androids, are clearly the invaders here. They're naturally reacting as they would. Yet, that's if I were thinking of them as humans. That's something to think about for sure. This culminates when 2B and 9S catch up to their last target, hiding amongst a large group of machine lifeforms that are, no joke, in the process of having copious amounts of sex. Yeah. There is a giant orgy going on in the middle of a chase here. This is so off-putting, and yet, through it, there's a message to be gleaned here. The machines aren't boinking each other just for the sake of pleasure. It's for the sake of expanding the colony, to grow their population into a true society. 9S may scoff and say they have no emotions, but that isn't the case to them. Who knows why either? Maybe this was the plan after winning the war all along. Or maybe they simply don't know any better. Throughout it all, that lingering, uncomfortable feeling hasn't gone away. Eventually, your target from earlier makes its appearance and a massive battle ensues. After mowing down wave after wave of enemy, the machines begin to come together and achieve something I don't think anyone could have expected.
What's happening?
An android?
No, this
Well, fuck. Not only can the machine life forms apparently evolve and create a being like this, but he's fully in the nude as well! Kidding aside, this introduced one of the main antagonists, as it were, Adam, and he can be considered the culmination of machines up to this point. While the combat is relatively simple, the decision to focus on spectacle during the boss fights has its merits. Like here with Adam, for example. The simple nature of its design really isn't an issue because it once again is a beautiful dance between two masters of their craft. Even if Adam was just born, he moves with such elegance as he adapts to the androids in front of him. Sure, you're pretty much going to be doing what you have been up to this point, but here it's enhanced due to the game kind of bringing everything all together. Enclosing an arena enhances the feeling that this isn't just your standard fight. Before we get to the next area, I just want to take a moment and marvel at just how beautiful this game is. I didn't really give it its dues, but from the city ruins and the desert zone alone, I can say with confidence these are some of the most visually stimulating set pieces I've ever seen. Sure, NieR Automata is almost 10 years old now, and yeah, the texture quality obviously wasn't the priority. I suppose it's more the overall feel you get while you're running around. This is the year 1100 and something. Humanity has been off on the moon for centuries, and you certainly feel that with each and every location. This dim, dystopian melancholy that falls over you with each step in the city ruins. And the sheer free space of the desert convey that emptiness perfectly. Very few games really nail the whole apocalyptic setting, but this one just gets it so well that even watching footage back, I'm in awe of it. Sliding through the sand dunes and seeing that shimmer of the horizon shine is just so beautiful. It's just such a pretty game, and when it feels this good to go through, it makes it even better. I'm kind of on an island where I often take a moment to absorb everything around me. These environments had a lot of love and care put into them, and if you go out of your way to look for that detail, you'll often enjoy the game at a much deeper level. That's where NieR Automata shines in my opinion. Didn't even mention this, but the machine life forms in the desert are equipped with some special masks. On their own, it's no biggie, but when you look at their shape and designs, you'll be reminded of something. This is actually a nod to the people of the Facade region from NieRReplicant. It isn't just conveniently placed either. It implies that the previous game and the events that took place are canon in this one. And if you know how deep that shit goes, oh buddy, I shouldn't be the one that spoils it for you. It doesn't stop there either. The amusement park. Oh my god. A horrific yet unsettlingly joyful ruin surrounded by machine lifeforms that aren't aggressive in the slightest. shadow casted with the most gorgeous sunset you'll ever see. It's like traversing through the sewers transported us to an entirely different world as if it were Alice in Wonderland. Probably an inspiration of some sort. I feel this odd sense of joy that makes me want to slowly absorb everything as I enter it. It's an amusement park, meant to bring joy to children and adults of all ages. Yet in this time, in this world, its presence being dominated by machine life forms adds such a creepy element to it. It's horrific to think that the joys we used to indulge ourselves in are now being used to humor the machine life forms. The building far off in the distance with a misshapen heart going down the middle is almost mocking the very idea. How can any of the sentients around feel the emotion that this heart conveys? You talk to these machines and they give you nothing. I just enjoy the irony of what is otherwise supposed to be a place where you'd go to relax is now one that puts me on edge. When I talk about visual storytelling and why I appreciate it so much, it's because of areas like this. Of course I have my intended reason for being here, but this place didn't just start off this way. Something had to happen for it to be in the state it is by the time we get here. There's an entire mystery to unravel on its own, and since it's unlikely we'll be seeing that, it's up to you to use what you know of the area to draw your own conclusions. You know, using your imagination. I like how NieR Automata asks me to look deeper and become even more immersed with the environment around me. At the end of the day, all of this is just fancy window dressing. It doesn't need to look this good, but it does, and that's detail I can't help but love. Eventually, our two androids find themselves in an abandoned theater where they are ambushed by a customized Goliath unit modeled after a dancer. The battle is spectacular in its own right, forcing you to dodge projectiles as this life form bombards you with attack after attack. It's funny how I referenced the combat as one giant dance, and here we are, fighting a dancer. It looks like we've come full circle. As the battle rages on, the dancing unit proclaims that she wants to become more beautiful, and as it reaches its climax, we catch a glimpse at what the unit was really after.
Affirmative.
Go!
Damn, that hits hard. Now you're probably wondering why I've put so much focus on the machine life forms as opposed to our two main characters. Can't fault you there, but when the game is putting all this focus on them by itself, it's kind of hard to ignore. So far it's truly been almost all about the machines and how they live on the now desolate planet, how they've come to live life, and adapt as times and environments have changed. Our characters have only been bouncing off of what they've been seeing. Ever since they reunited on the bunker, 2B and 9S act as I assumed they were programmed to. 2B is very stoic, focused on the mission and not too concerned with the emotions of others. Yet, throughout these first few missions, she's been more empathetic than one might realize. Whether it's fallen Yorha members or her partner 9S. She's always seemed concerned about her companions and goes out of her way to help them if she can. Yet that doesn't come before the mission. She was designed to battle after all, and that's what she'll do until mankind has reclaimed Earth. 9S on the other hand is a bit more outgoing. He's a lot more normal than an android should be, yet his demeanor misplaces him amongst his comrades. While 9S always tries to joke around with 2B, he's always quickly shut down or reminded to keep his focus on the mission. The two literally couldn't be more opposite if they tried, yet it still forms a mutual admiration that from the very get-go lets you know that these two have each other's back. It might even go deeper than that if you know what I'm saying. After destroying the dancing Goliath unit, 2B and 9S are greeted by a supposed friendly machine life form who wants to thank the two androids by bringing them to its village. Naturally, the two androids are wary of their supposed new allies' calm demeanor, but after a quick back and forth with the resistance camp, they ease up and become open to the idea of androids and machines working together. They may not see eye to eye, but at least they can help each other survive. I really resonate with this line from Pascal after a short conversation between the three about androids and machines working together.
After all, the only way to understand someone is to get to know them. Isn't that right?
It's such a simple thing. Taking time to get to know someone, and yet it's still very important. How can any sort of life possibly manage to feel fulfillment if we don't communicate with each other? Taking the time to get to know someone and find common ground isn't out of our reach. It's funny how often we choose to ignore this though. It's a reminder that this battle between machines and androids doesn't need to be going on. Each of these sides can perfectly coexist with the other if they truly wanted to. It's such a shame then that some of the machines don't feel like this, as in the middle of the conversation, a Goliath-class unit emerges in the city ruins. After making quick work of that, the bunker receives an odd signal from a foreign network. When she calls 2B and 9S, she informs them that this is a signal from the aliens that are directly commanding the machines left on the network. Now that their location is locked, it seems like Yorha may finally get some answers on these alien invaders. Except not. Upon investigating the signal, 9S and 2B find what looked to be the remains of the alien spaceship. Inside, every alien life form in sight slain to death. The culprit? The two perfect machines from earlier, Adam and his brother that spawned out of him, Eve. Almost instantly, you're thrown into a boss fight in this cool 2D perspective, which I assume is meant to mimic a fighting game. It's a little odd, and the perspective of the other duo of combatants being in the background isn't great on the eyes, but it's cool. I think it makes me understand why the combat is simple by design. And being in this hollow craft with the corpses of your opponent's creators surrounding you, it makes for an unforgettable set piece. Like, this is something you'd only see in this game, you know what I mean? As you go toe to toe with one another, Adam proclaims that centuries ago the machines wiped out their creators. As machines are capable of evolving and becoming aware, you know, the whole artificial intelligence taking over the world spiel, Adam in particular wasn't fond of his creators, finding them to be simple and of no value. Humanity, however, due to our chaotic nature, fascinated Adam, and he chooses to devote his existence to solving the mystery of why humans are the way they are. He offers the two androids the opportunity to assist him and his brother, but since that sounds batshit crazy, obviously that isn't going to happen. Now the stage is set. It's the androids of Yorha versus the machine life forms and their leaders. As the Council of Humans on the moon discuss amongst themselves what Yorha's next course of action should be, the commander informs our androids that the council wants them to monitor Pascal. Considering the other 99% of machine life forms want to annihilate humanity, it might be prudent to learn more as to why this one and his village aren't hostile. When 2B and 9S ask Pascal about why he's a pacifist, his answer resonates with our two characters. Pascal and his people have been alive for centuries and have lost many of their friends during that time. It wasn't the fact that they were gone that worried Pascal. It was that he had grown used to this feeling of loss. It's kind of difficult to understand since our lifespans aren't nearly as long as the machine life forms, but even still, at some point you become familiar with suffering. Take a look at the world around us. It doesn't look like the humans who inhabited this world went out with any grace. It's been over 6,000 years since the aliens invaded Earth. You can feel their impact even after so long. Look at some of the characters even. Our introduction to 2B sees her watch as her comrades are gunned down one by one. She's seen her partner suffer, yet despite all that, she's carried this calm demeanor with only the slightest of outbursts. And take a look at 9S. All he's done is try and connect with any of his companions any way he can. At some point, you just become numb to the mundanity of consistent negativity surrounding you. Pascal decides that if he can make a change, he should, which is why he and his friends have all banded together to create a society that stands against fighting entirely. It was weird to look at these robots as anything other than what they are, but now I'm starting to understand their plight and what the overall message is a little more. When 2B asks Pascal about some of the other machines off the network, Pascal informs her that there's a group located in the forest that intends to plan their own rebellion. When the two androids approach the entrance to the forest, they find it in the form of an old shopping center, with a brigade of the Forest King's machines waiting. However, one of them starts acting up and malfunctions. When it cracks open, a floating head emerges. Before the two can exterminate it, however, it dashes away. Well, that was weird. Psst, you're going to want to remember this, by the way, because I'm going to do this thing later where I blow your fucking mind. Honestly, the only reason you're here is so you can run into the Forest Zone's boss, the rogue Yorha android A2. We learn that A2 is wanted by Yorha after abandoning the outfit, among some other crimes, going so far to brutally assault and destroy multiple android units, or in other words, her former comrades. As the battle concludes, 9S pleads with the betrayer, asking her why she abandoned the android's cause. A2 responds by saying that it's Yorha Command itself that has betrayed all the androids. So let me level with you here. This goes absolutely nowhere, and as quickly as it begins, it abruptly ends. No joke. Quick boss fight, you go and chat with Pascal and learn that A2 is dangerous. Like, wow. I guess I'll just move on then? I mean, what else do you want me to say here? I mean, nice level of detail for a character that shows up for all of about 5 minutes. But sorry, I got nothing. It was fine, on to the next. So after returning to the Resistance camp, the 2 androids receive their next mission from Anemone. Go assist Resistance members who are loading missiles onto a carrier for resupply, bringing us to our next location, the Flooded City. Now this is more like it, a depressing city with an ominous tone in the background that constantly lingers. As you take each step, you feel the echoes of those who came before overwhelm you. And yet through all that melancholic shit, a beautiful view, one NieR Automata is not unfamiliar with. When 2B and 9S defeat all the machines present, they get word that the carrier bringing the missiles is under attack from a huge swarm of machines. As the 2 reach their destination, they find a machine life form so massive it cannot be classified under YoRHa regulation. I just want to take a quick second and appreciate the versatility of this game. I've kind of been neglecting all the little details as I've gone through all the major story elements. My attempt at keeping this video under 2 hours. But this shit right here is just so rad, man. The flight unit sections are without question the unsung hero of NieR Automata. In concept, they're very basic, but in practice, the scope enhances everything. 2B and 9S and their rinky-dink Gundam ripoffs have to go against this absolute behemoth? This gargantuan machine life form that has the ability to shoot lasers from all across its body? How do you even stand a chance? It just makes it feel like a much bigger deal than it is, and maybe more games need that. At the end of the day, this is just a resupply mission. The war will go on, but the way this battle ensues makes it feel like this is the opener to the final boss or something. And I just love the interpretation. Normally this would be saved for the core combat in an arena fight for a final duel, but this is just a twin stick shooter. I'd usually be adverse to something like this, but beyond the gorgeous detail and the stakes that are set, I think I just enjoyed the audacity to go simple here. With how massive this all feels, I'm sure the idea to have 2B and 9S scale the ginormous robot was put on the table, but I bet YokoTaro stepped in and said, "Wow guys, what if we made it like an 80s arcade game?" That sounds so stupid to say, yet I honestly wouldn't put it past him. Maybe he thought it would be fun. I don't know. Trust me, I could gush about this all day, but considering the video's length already, I think it's best we moved on because we're finally at the part where shit gets crazy. Once the gargantuan machine is defeated, 2B wakes up in the flooded city without 9S. Immediately she contacts her operator to locate her partner. Her concern is clear, and luckily the commander has already greenlit a mission to search and rescue any surviving YoRHa members. After receiving an upgrade for her pod from 2 eerily familiar androids, 2B chases after her companion post-haste. Eventually you find your way to the copied city, a manufactured desolate void of a realm. A location that thrives in the empty. From the outside looking in, it seems like an area that got cut during production. The melody that plays in the background perfectly captures the tone that NieR Automata is going for. It starts off peaceful, but as you go deeper into the city, the music ramps up and the stings make you look over your shoulder in real life. As you're walking around and take notice of some of the buildings surrounding 2B, you begin to realize something. Copied City is pretty on the nose, don't you think? And as you approach the center, its true nature is revealed.
Welcome to my beloved city.
Yeah, this boss is pretty rad. Adam and 2B going at it in the manufactured copy of the city before the fall. A battle of philosophies going head to head. The stakes couldn't get any higher. Adam attacks with such poised confidence, floating around and using all facets of his copied city to his advantage. A moment of doubt begins to rear its head. Up to this moment, androids have proven themselves as the superior life form in this conflict, and it's only due to the sheer number of machines that have YoRHa on the ropes. But as you watch the perfected version of this life form in Adam, you begin to doubt the android's ability to win. Even if the fight itself isn't actually too difficult, that heavy weight is still present. I wish I had more to say on this, but considering we only see Adam just before a boss fight, there isn't much for me to glean. I think his turn from machine to man is compelling. Whenever he or his brother show up, NieR Automata goes out of its way to make the bosses feel like a big deal. I wasn't messing around when I said the stakes couldn't get higher here. It's just that it's not very, personal? I just don't really feel attached to either party here. 2B, 9S, and Yorha are pretty interesting. Adam and Eve make for pretty compelling villains when they're actually on screen. But beyond the surface level take of them telling me their objectives and how I can extrapolate them, there isn't much here. I like how Adam taunts 2B by revealing her imprisoned partner, but those are just moments in a scene that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, yeah, this does fit with the whole androids versus machines thing, but it just doesn't feel as personal as these characters are making it out to be. Like, bro, relax, it's not that deep. I don't know, it's just very odd. The game has been teasing more to the semantics of these beings' existence, and I just don't think we get enough of it. But maybe, once Adam's defeated, 2B and 9S can share a moment. Maybe even at the very least embrace one another. They've been through a lot in a quick time period, and it's obvious that emotions are in play here. With their adversary out of the way, maybe, just maybe, they'll finally admit how they feel to each other.
Come on. Let's go home.
Oh, I see. Okay, look, I overlooked most of this earlier because then it wasn't a big deal. But this is like the climax, the point of no return, and we just fade to black into the next scene? Really? Believe me, I wish I could go off on some tangent on the characters and the story and all that. But what do you want me to say? Bold choice from the director to just hard cut to the next objective? And from here, it doesn't get much better. Alright, let me level with you for a second. After the big bombastic boss with Adam, the story really meanders its way to the end. I guess things technically happen, but none of it is anything I would consider interesting or essential. It's like after the boss fight you just had, the game has no idea how it wants to stitch its way to the end. What you end up doing is going back to the factory for one final mission, only to be told that, uh-oh, nope, this was all a trap. Cue another boss fight against giant machine life form. Ugh, it's so strange. One second I'm begging the game to give me more, and by the next I'm doing things I don't really want to. It's not the worst thing, but for what could be shown in this time, I can literally feel the missed potential. It's just jarring, and sure, maybe that's the intention, but it's tough for me to comment when the game so messily makes its way to the end. The only reason I've been speedrunning to the finale is because that's how the game handles it. Ever since we entered the flooded city, it's just been go, go, go. There is no time to rest. On one hand, this makes perfect sense. I really appreciate how real the storytelling can feel at times. Not so long ago, you murdered one of the main adversaries. Of course it wouldn't take them long to retaliate. The way it all fits into the general structure of this narrative makes sense and is satisfying to see unfold. However, when you try to go deeper than that, the cracks start to get a little wider. Maybe I am just too conditioned to the standard character death being followed up with a moment to reflect. NieR Automata doesn't seem interested in following trends. I can respect that, but in these moments where I'd like to learn more about these people, I'm disappointed more often than not. There is so much potential brimming from everyone involved. It's a shame we don't get to see more of that in favor of just moving the story along. I appreciate you trying to respect my time, but come on. This is all you're gonna give me? Seriously? Whatever. Clearly the game wants to end, so I think it's time we get there. So obviously Eve is the final boss of NieR Automata. Makes total sense. He's the second half of Adam, and after hearing his brother die, revenge is clearly on his mind. For as nonchalant as I'm acting, the spectacle does not hold back. It starts off with you tackling a conglomerate of machines abnormally put together before they chase you in the form of a heartless tornado. Once you're done with that, you need to chase Eve to the center of the city for the final showdown. A 2-on-1 duel in the middle of a giant sandstorm that our machine adversary forces through sheer hatred. The set piece is not disappointing, and the boss battle itself isn't too bad either. Eve, through his malice, throws wave after wave of attack. rarely slowing down to give you a chance to retort. With this obscured view, it isn't making targeting him any easier even with the lock-on. Even NieRS suggests that hacking into Eve despite the risk may be the only option they have to stand a chance. The weight of expectation is clearly present, and for the first time in a bit, it feels like everything in this story is coming full circle. However, it isn't perfect. God damn, you were so close! Beyond the fact it takes place across multiple sections in the overworld, all it really comes down to is a simple sword fight. Considering how expansive and fun the gameplay can get, to opt for just a standard battle here is severely underwhelming. It doesn't take away from the overall moment, but again, it feels like an opportunity missed. How does something like a random massive machine get one of the coolest designed boss fights in the game, but the final one gets awkward platforming during hack and slash combat? I definitely appreciate the fact there's a mid-fight transition where Eve goes even wilder as he floats, and I enjoy the story element of you having to end the fight with your pod as your short-range combat malfunctions, but it's just not enough, man. Maybe this is the point? If so, I just don't seem to get it. And if it isn't, then what the fuck? Where's the big bombastic ending? Like, this can't possibly be it, right? Eve's gonna rise up in round 2 will... Oh no, he's actually just dead?
Finally. It's over.
Wow. Before 2B can get too comfortable, she looks over at NieRS as he succumbs to data corruption. As 2B takes in each of her companion's words, the slow reality sets in. She needs to kill NieRS before the infection can make its way to the bunker. After everything the two have been through, 2B leans in per NieRS's request and begins choking him out. As the breath leaves his body, she bursts into tears. It's not like NieRS will be gone forever, but his memory and his feelings for her, the things that made him who he is, will be gone. And as if to spit in the face of our protagonist, a machine life form starts blinking, triggering all in the vicinity to react as well. Eventually, one of the units awakens, revealing itself to be NieRS's consciousness. I'm not even gonna try and explain how he pulled this off, but yeah, he is alive and kicking, much to 2B's relief. And that's NieR Automata. You know, maybe I'll rescind calling this one of the GOATs. Maybe a lot of this went over my head or there just wasn't enough time, but regardless, I'm pretty confused as to what I just played. It starts off with one of the greatest bangs I've ever experienced in a video game, but after like the midway point, it starts to fall off into what I'd consider a pretty average experience. It's certainly not bad, there's a lot of fun to be had here, but at almost every turn I'm left wanting more. What's the deal with 2B and NieRS? Do they just live happily ever after? Did humanity win? There's so many questions, but it appears that NieR Automata isn't interested in answering any of them. I don't even really know what the point of this video is anymore. I don't have a conclusion for y'all because this game just kind of ends. So even if I wanted to drag things out, there's nothing for me to pull from. Out of everything though, the most disappointing part is that I just don't really see the point. What was the story trying to say besides there's more to machines and androids than meets the eye? Okay, and? For as well regarded as this game is, I find myself so underwhelmed that I struggle to see why anyone would play it. It definitely has its charm and its polish shouldn't go unnoticed, but beyond that, the combat was mid, the story was mid, it was overall kind of just mid, fellas. As the credits reached its end, I honestly didn't know what to feel. Wait, a notification from SquareEnix. Alright, let's see. Thank you for playing the game, yada yada. This game has several different story. Alright. Duh.
Requesting destruction of enemy hostiles via black box reaction.
Yes, of course, I was just teasing you guys. NieR Automata doesn't just end after you roll the credits. This story has more to it, and if you want to see how it ends, you'll have to continue your journey. Now, I realize that this game is almost 10 years old now, and this concept isn't exactly novel anymore, but still, it's probably the most unique aspect of this series. To fracture its story is another bold choice from director YokoTaro. It isn't the usual expectation, and if not done right, can be very off-putting. Despite that, this story was already brimming with so much potential. Maybe with another playthrough or two, we'll see the entire narrative come full circle. There's just a few things I'd like to clarify before we start. God damn, I really am the worst. On top of separating its story across different playthroughs, NieR Automata goes the extra distance and actually splits its story across multiple perspectives, giving you control over a few different characters. This is really cool and adds a whole lot of variety to each storyline, but in regards to this video, this presents a problem. Going through each playthrough individually sounds really daunting. So for the sake of time and my own sanity, I'm just going to go over the differences and move on. There's a lot here to discuss, but this definitely isn't the forum for it. This part of the script is already longer than it should be, so let's not delay anymore. Oh, and one last time, full spoilers ahead. We've much to discuss.
Brother.
Doesn't matter how much oil you give him, little guy. You can't make a machine your brother. Well, looks like it's time.
NieR Automata Ending B starts with the same mission from our first playthrough. This time though, we'll be seeing the mission unfold from 9S's perspective. So let me be honest here, while there are plenty of new things to talk about, when it comes to the story, most, if not all of it, is beat for beat the same as Ending A. I don't want to go and discuss all that again only to end up saying, but this time we're playing as 9S. So let's talk about how 9S feels in combat. That should shake things up a little. For the most part, 9S doesn't deviate from the general mold of NieR Automata's battle mechanics. He's equipped with basically the same exact moveset as 2B. The only real difference I noticed is that 9S prefers to control his weapon, I guess, telepathically? He often tosses it just a bit ahead of him and manipulates it to strike at his foes, giving you a bit of distance before you dodge. Not exactly the game changer I was hoping for, but it's a neat novelty. Something that does change the game though is how 9S's heavy attack works. So like every typical action game, when you're playing as 2B and input a heavy attack, she slowly yet strongly bashes her enemies in. But to execute this, she wields a heavy weapon. 9S doesn't have that luxury, so he needs to be a little creative if he wants to deal some damage. When you input a heavy attack with 9S, the operator android seemingly grabs hold of the enemy, and when the circle around them fills up, you're transported into a quick bullet hell section where you need to destroy the black orb floating around. I know what you're thinking. This is taking me away from my slashing and bashing. Wow, bro, that's really lame. So it might come to your surprise when I tell you that I really love this stupid little minigame. Firstly, I mean, come on, isn't this just perfect? 9S has been hacking his way out of almost every sticky situation, and now you actually get to take part in that. It not only fits this weird box NieR Automata is forming, but it's also just very satisfying that you actually get to engage with it directly. And the minigame itself is actually pretty fun in its own right. I can't possibly overcomplicate this because the objective is just too simple. That doesn't mean it'll be easy to achieve all the time. Some of the formations are actually pretty brutal, and when you only have like 30 seconds at most, you need to come at it like it's a puzzle. What order is the most efficient to get to the black orb? How should I use some of the blocks around me? Quick fire decisions like this that keep my brain stimulated in what would otherwise be seen as an intrusion. Would I rather have breakneck, blood pumping action with all sorts of cool animations and all that stuff? Yeah, of course I would. But this works. I often refer to things like this as breaking the game. This mechanic feels almost designed to cater to this philosophy. It can be pretty fun on its own, mixing it in between a horde of enemies to keep the combat feeling fresh. But when you start thinking of how to apply it, you'll realize its true potential. It stands to reason that if you can hack into things, no machine life form should be off limits. So you start targeting bigger enemies with it. And sure, the minigame ramps up in difficulty a little bit, but it's almost like a get out of jail free card. Even if the enemy is in the middle of an attack, as long as you win before time's up, you'll have deleted like half of your foe's health bar. But that's not enough. If I can do it on some of the Goliath class units, maybe I can do it against... Okay, let's try this. So you get to add him for the first time since we're pretty much just going over the same events from the first playthrough, and yeah, this is fucking awesome, dude. If bosses weren't a challenge before, then by God, they're absolutely helpless now. Literally, at the press of a button, I can manipulate the entire combat to work in my favor. This may sound dull and bland, seeing as you're going to be interacting with this bullet hell minigame a lot. And yes, it can get pretty old, pretty fast. Though, there is one cool little detail that had me coming back to hold my triangle button at every opportunity. Whenever you transition into a hacking sequence, the music also changes to an 8-bit version of the current song that's playing seamlessly. There's no loss in quality, there's no awkward buffer, it just smoothly changes every time. I can't help myself. Like, it's just so cool and unique, and to be honest, I interacted with the hacking so much just to see if it would stutter, and it never did. Intimate, deliberate detail is all over this game, but this is without question my favorite bit of it. When you consider that these hacking sequences take no longer than 10 to 15 seconds to finish, it makes the care put in here all that more bizarre. Why go so far out of your way for something as small as this? It not only shows off the quality of Automata soundtrack, but its versatility too. The fact that nearly every track in the game can seamlessly become 8-bit is just so cool, man. I love it, and I wish more games would follow its lead more. Before I get into the main changes with the story here, there's one last little thing I want to discuss in 9S's route here. That weird little head from earlier. God, I've been waiting so long to talk about this. Once you've unlocked the forest zone, you'll see this really creepy circle floating around the map. And when you interact with it, you'll find the head from earlier will introduce himself as Emile. Now, if you've only played NieR Automata, this doesn't have much consequence. He's just a funny looking shopkeeper who says funny things. But he just so happens to have probably my favorite side quest in any video game ever. After interacting with him, a marker opens in the shopping mall near the forest. When you inspect it, you find a strange flower known in this universe as a lunar tear. Before you can examine it, Emile appears and explains that the flower for some reason overwhelms him with odd emotions, and he asks 9S to find more. So you know, merry goose chase around the world for a bit, and as you find each flower, Emile starts to open up a bit more on the flower's significance and how it ties into his past. When you collect the final flower in the flooded city, Emile gives us a key to the elevator that was locked in the shopping center. When you take the elevator up, you arrive at a location that's very special to Emile, and when he arrives, he explains how he was created to be a weapon capable of total destruction. When the war against the aliens began, he decided to split himself up into a bunch of Emiles to stop their adversaries from overtaking them, but through that process, his memories began to fade. This Emile is one of those copies, and he's been protecting the original Emile's favorite location. But this place isn't just special for this random one-off character. This is special for you, the one keen to the reference here. You see, the original Emile was one of the main characters in the first NieR, and this location, primarily the shack, is one of the homes for another character. The lunar tear itself is a nod to one of the main plot points of NieRReplicant. I don't even really know how to properly convey how I feel about this. It's just so beautiful. I'm not really an emotional guy per se. I'm usually pretty good at keeping things in check, but anytime, whether it's my first or 15th time walking in here, I just can't help but smile. I'm not usually a fan of references, primarily due to the fact that 9 out of 10 times they're usually done with such poor taste. NieRReplicant is a game that probably means more to me than this one does. To have the far more popular Automata acknowledge its predecessor in such a respectful manner almost brings a tear to my eye. I say it a lot, but for real this time. This probably is my favorite location in video games. It's a little room of pure self-indulgence. It allows me to theory craft how Replicant ties into Automata, with Emile being that direct link. The location itself is unbelievably gorgeous, housing some of the prettiest particle effects ever. Oh, and that music. Sweet Jesus. Repurposing a track from the first game, it creates an environment that oddly enough reminds me of home. It's a symbol that not everything that came before is lost, and it could remain pure should we choose to protect it. The last thing we need to talk about in regards to this ending route has to do with the differences with 9S's version of the story. Since things were a little ambiguous in the first route, this one aims to provide a lot more context to the player. Take, for example, the battle with the Dancing Goliath unit from earlier. Instead of some foreign-ass language nobody on this planet could understand, you actually see what the machine's name is: Simone. When 9S hacks into Simone, you see flashbacks of the machine attempting to beautify herself by continuously adding new adornments. Once she's defeated, a long text blurb plays out that's meant to act as the backstory for Simone. It tells a little story of how a machine learned to interpret beauty, and by using it she could win the affection of a machine lifeform that's special to her. But this story turns violent and dark when it's revealed that the machine Simone longed for didn't feel the same way. It's a sad tale that weighs heavily on you, making 9S's words hit that much harder once you've defeated her. Maybe all she really wanted was her mans, and had things worked out, the machines in the park could enjoy a better fate. It really makes you question the struggle going on. Who's in the right and who's in the wrong? Are these beings even what they say they are? In theory, yeah, going through content you've already seen doesn't really sound all that engaging, but in practice, here it's enthralling. It adds necessary context, and this is a shining moment of that. Something similar happens in the forest zone as well. It tells the story of how the machines took over the forest and created essentially their own government. Sure, it's just a monarchy, but we're talking about machines that are disconnected from the network with the minds and attention spans of children. For them to essentially evolve from babies into an organized syndicate is impressive in its own right. It even culminates in them somehow creating new life in the form of a baby robot. That's the, one that A2 murders during her entrance. Damn. One of my favorite additions to this route, however, would have to be the extra scenes with Adam and Eve. During these scenes, we get to see the two banter with each other and get a glimpse at their personalities a bit more. Adam is obviously the brains, as he's always constantly studying texts from the old world regarding humanity's cultures and customs. He's always trying to learn to satiate that thirst for the knowledge he seeks. Perfectly meticulous and always calculated are phrases I don't think are too foreign to this guy. And his brother Eve is a bit of a goofball, always wanting to play, whatever that means. As our two adversaries, they're a bit of an odd couple, but they fit in this odd narrative. They're both unhinged and aren't satisfied unless they get what they want. Like 2B and 9S before, they're polar opposites and offer a nice contrast to our two protagonists. It adds a lot of subtle depth, if you know what I mean. Even with all this extra context, the motivation isn't complex. But the why here makes these two come off a little more wholesome. It doesn't exactly save them from their mid-status as characters, but the extra content made their plight a little more believable. Therefore, I think all this fluff, as it were, is warranted. But if there was anything about Ending B that's worth returning for, it would have to be how the story deviates after the flooded city. So remember how in the A route 2B woke up to hear that 9S went missing? 10 points for the person who gets right in the back row, because yeah, we actually see how 9S ended up in the copied city. Kinda. Due to the EMP blast from the oversized machine life form, it forces 9S to reboot his body. It takes the hacking minigame from earlier and expands it into this mini section as you manually access some of 9S's memory units. And this is where the true tragedy of NieR Automata begins to set in. 9S for the most part has been the bright spark amongst the sea of shadows. He's the one that's gone above and beyond to try and connect with all his companions. More often than not, 9S ends up being the person the other characters rely on when things get tense. There was a moment where I thought his views on machines was all an act, but this isn't that type of story. Coincidentally enough, it was this moment here where we read out some of 9S's thoughts through disembodied text. It tells the story of someone who just wanted more, and was jealous of those he's up against. And can you blame him? From what we've seen, the machine lifeforms on the surface pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. They are not just surviving, but enjoying the beauties that the planet can provide. Considering Yorha's goal is to reclaim the planet for humanity, you can understand 9S's jealousy. They've been fighting for God knows how long. Who knows how much more there is left in this war? What's going to happen to the Yorha division should the androids reclaim the planet? All of that, and 9S still won't get any love from his teammates. As you go through each memory, you witness 9S's mental state deteriorate in real time, culminating in a moment so chilling it nearly made me jump out of my seat. So you remember how 2B finds 9S in the copied city, right? Well, as you're sifting through 9S's data, Adam actually begins hacking into the scanning unit. Eventually, these recollections of 9S's memories end up becoming a conversation between him and Adam. The perfected machine lifeform goads the android into revealing his true feelings. If there was one person 9S truly wanted to get to know better, it was 2B. Like I teased earlier, there's much more going on between these two. At the end of the day, regardless of the mission or YoRHa, the two androids realized that they cared very deeply for each other. Much to Adam's pleasure, I'd imagine. As he taunts the operator unit for being more than what he was designed to be, he goes to a level I haven't seen a video game like this ever go.
You're thinking about how much you want to 2B, aren't you?
God damn. This is when everything made sense for me. NieR Automata isn't a game where the story is about saving the world. Yeah, that's a part of it, I guess, but it's about more than that. I haven't mentioned it yet, but throughout 9S's route, we've cut away to the storybook narrative that are basically old machine stories. It goes in depth on how machines evolved and eventually learned to care for one another. At some point, they even developed the ability to desire things, including Adam and Eve on their quest for knowledge. If you were to not know these were machines, these stories would come off like children's tales that you'd read to your kid at night. My weird way of saying they're very human. Whether they'd admit it or not, both sides in this conflict are striving to be human. Adam may claim his pursuit is for knowledge, but his actions show us what his true desire is. His brother is no different, indulging in his primal instincts by the end of the game. The androids are the same. Even 2B, who's like the iciest character around, might not outright say it's what she wants, but you can tell more than anything she just wants to get closer to 9S. This may be set in a world-ending apocalypse scenario, but in reality, this is a story about humanity, people, and connections, feeding desires and having the feeling of wanting something. Some want a sense of community, and others just want to feel loved. What may come off as trivial to us in everyday life are things these two sides are literally killing for. It really puts things into perspective. It's really a shame then that the events that play out aren't exactly kid-friendly. Once 9S is brought back to the bunker to have his body repaired, he needs to manually reset his body. As 9S reconnects to the YoRHa network, he accidentally hacks into the bunker's main server and finds confidential files regarding Project YoRHa. After confronting the commander, the truth is finally revealed.
Yes. We installed the Council of Humanity's server on the surface of the moon.
But that means...
Mankind no longer exists. In truth, humans never went to the moon at all. Any transmissions received from the moon are just dummy signals we set up in advance. The only thing there is a small bit of data relating to the human genome.
But why would you...
Humans were already extinct when the aliens attacked. All the details are stored on this memory chip. If you want to look at it, I won't stop you.
Wait, you're just giving me this? But why?
No one fights without a reason. And we need a god worth dying for. What path will you take? It's up to you to decide.
Well, shit, I don't have a lot of options now, do I? Reading the top secret report you receive from the commander reveals that, yeah, humanity has been extinct for thousands of years. It goes in detail about how the androids searched for a way to delay humanity's extinction, but were unsuccessful. As android morale began to fall, the leaders decide to create a ruse as a means to lift their spirits. That includes creating the signal that transmits from the moon, all to create a lie that humanity was hiding out thousands of light years away just waiting for their heroes to save them. That is unbelievably fucked up, to degrees I don't even feel comfortable discussing in video format. So you mean to tell me that everything I'm doing, even the character I'm controlling, was for nothing? I don't think I'm okay, guys. I don't think I've ever had a video game gaslight me this hard. Maybe this bomb drop somewhere else wouldn't rattle me so hard. But when the focus has primarily been on the essence of humanity, to hear they're just gone now is tough to accept. The rest of the story from here plays out almost exactly the same as before. And you know, normally this would bug me. I think it's annoying to have to go through the same content twice, but after hearing what I just heard, I think not mixing things up works well. You'll probably be going through the motions like I did, but through them you get a chance to really let what happened sit with you. You start to ask yourself some serious questions. Is this worth it? Should I just quit out and uninstall? The game clearly made its point. Sometimes things don't matter. What you're pursuing doesn't matter. Your existence doesn't matter. The B route takes what is otherwise an ambitious yet unfleshed plot and adds the gratuitous detail to make those confusing plot points from earlier really hit you. It's why I think the story is realer than most others. It doesn't shy away from repeatedly gut-punching you with tragedy after tragedy. Do I think that just recycling content only to make a few small changes is the way to go? Nah, probably not. But here, it works so well, and it adds to why this series feels so different amongst its contemporaries. What makes it so interesting is how you feel going on these routes with these characters. With 2B, since things are so vague, you're mostly confused and you're kind of just taking everything at face value because realistically, what else are you going to do? Since this is coming from her perspective, the story comes off very stoic and emotionally dry at times. With 9S, however, it's a lot more personal. We take extended periods of time to devote to learning directly about a character's backstory. While it was implied before, every action has an equal and opposite reaction in NieR Automata, and seeing it firsthand makes you wonder if all of it was worth it, an effect not many games have. Despite everything I've shown you, however, I feel like there's still more to unravel. Humanity is extinct, so where does Yorha go from here? What'll happen to our lead characters? Was there more to the emotions they displayed earlier? What about Pascal and his village? There's so much that it all can't possibly fit in a sequel. Shit, knowing this director, none of this would be followed up in a different game anyway. So what if I told you there's more to this absurdity I reference as a tale? In the final section of Ending B, you get to control 2B in the bunker as the credits slide by. Attention to detail again, just mwah. I love it. Oddly enough, a few mission markers pop up, and once completed you realize that, yeah, this story ain't quite over yet.
Remember your pain. The pain of having your homeland stolen. We will never give up our struggle. We will take back the seas, the skies, the land. We will take back our world from the scourge of the machines. We will not fail in this mission. Here and now, we will put an end to this goddamn war. Glory to mankind. Glory to mankind.
A calm demise.
Unlike the last route, this isn't one I can half-ass because to my delight, there's a brand new chapter to experience. Like actual new content, not like before. Sorry, it can get confusing at times. Let's keep it real, you know the first two routes, they're great and all. Seeing the same story from two totally different perspectives is fine, but let's be honest. Some moments can get pretty old seeing them in such short succession. But diving deeper into these characters in this world knowing what we already know of it is tantalizing in all the best ways. I could keep teasing you, but I know what you want. So let's just dive into this already. This brand new chapter opens with the commander rallying what's left of her Yorha units for one final siege against the machine lifeforms. Adam and Eve are both gone. The machines have never been more vulnerable. There literally couldn't be a more perfect time to strike. During these scenes, we also learned that 9S didn't tell 2B the truth about humanity. I think in any other game, maintaining the lie here would come off very forced. We, the player, already know the truth about humanity. So as 2B receives the transmission from the moon, I'm not exactly sure how to feel. When you consider the events that are about to transpire though, it kind of makes sense. This is the moment everything was building up to, and it plays out as bombastically as it should. You know, for the most part, I'd say this is a pretty low-key game. It often excels at quieting down and providing a moment of beauty that doesn't need a bunch of flashes and bangs. But it seems like it was just holding back until this moment here. And due to how the game plays, you actually feel like you're in the middle of a war. It's thrilling, and normally I'd say the game would need more of this, but for this story, it only makes sense to save the big moments for when it's really necessary. And considering this is new content, I'd say it fits just fine. One of the coolest moments is near the end of the battle. A scripted moment happens where the machines actually make some of the androids go haywire. I don't know if it was an accident or not, but I'm pretty sure at one point my model just didn't appear and all you could see was my floating sword. While I may not get those close, intimate moments in the story as consistently as I'd like, when it comes to cool shit like this, I realize this is its interpretation of personal. You can't find another game that interacts with the player with as much nuance as this, to a point where interacting with just the common enemy is unique. Eventually, this brings us back to the bunker. 2B and 9S rush to the commander to tell her about the situation on the surface, only to find that the virus has infected all the units present. As the androids of significance try making their escape, they're constantly jeered at by the machine life form responsible for the virus. Damn, this is kinda scary to be honest. It feels like we've lost full control, and the entity who's doing all this is taking a victory lap for his achievement. The virus even manages to take a hold of the commander, and after one final exchange, 2B and 9S descend down to start the final journey. The moments immediately following this are painfully calm, if that makes any sense. Unfortunately, 2B succumbs to the infection, and as it slowly takes over her body, the journey you just underwent starts to come together. It's a long, slow walk to what will be 2B's resting place, and you begin to understand everything a little bit more. Could be only me, but as the virus ticker kept rising and the screen became more distorted, I started to remember everything we've been through. It's been a pretty crazy journey so far, and it's been taxing on everyone involved. I know I've basically said she's a robot with the odd emotion here and there, but honestly, as the story has gone on, she herself has slowly started to become human. I can't say if she ever gets there for sure, but what I can say for certain is that she's not the same android who would shut down 9S anytime he tried injecting life into this miserable ass narrative. When 2B approaches the shopping mall, she's ambushed by corrupted androids. Before they can take her out, A2, the random unit who went rogue from earlier, appears to lend a hand. Once the two are clear from any immediate threat, A2 turns to her former compatriot with a look that implies there's only one way this can go. By the time 9S reaches 2B, the deed has already been done.
2B! Are you...
Nights.
Oh no! 2B. No!
From here, the story splits into two separate sections. Since we have a brand new character to talk about, I guess it's best if we start there. A2 wakes up in the middle of the city ruins to find that 2B's pod has assigned itself to her. In terms of gameplay, there isn't much for me to say. As a battle unit, she's pretty much exactly the same as 2B, down to the animations and everything. Her only unique gimmick in combat is this berserk mode, but I didn't use it all that much. In theory, once it's activated, you'll deal massive damage as you sacrifice your health. But in practice, yeah, this shit's kind of ass cheeks. You lose health at such a rapid rate that you won't even get time to attack the enemy. And at least from what I experienced, there was no way to deactivate Berserk mode once turned on. I only used it like once, so feel free to correct me in the comments, but it would just keep going until my health drained. I didn't die much throughout my playthrough, but this was one of the few times I did, and it wasn't because the enemy was better than me. It was because one of the main gimmicks handcuffed my playstyle. Though to give the game its credit, I would say this was probably the most fun I had with the combat. By this point, all the enemies are nearly max level, so each battle comes with that, oh shit, if I get hit even once, it might be the end for me. But surprisingly, I also dive deeper into the game's customization. You know me, I don't like to experiment too much, and I don't tend to deviate from a preferred playstyle. In translation to NieR Automata, basically that means I don't like to build my character. I'd rather focus on refining my skill than adding a few percentage uptickers. But considering how customization is implemented here, present in the form of customizable chipsets, I figured I'd check it out. And boy am I glad I did. You turn from a nimble battle droid to a fucking tank when equipped with certain chips. Yet despite that, the combat never felt easier. I never really felt in danger, but I still had to be on my game, and that's a huge step up from earlier. I finally got the chance to change my moves a little with each encounter, and honestly, it was just a lot more fun to go through. She's basically a souped up version of 2B, and when actually diving into the game's menus for a bit, the opportunity to make some truly disgusting builds is right there should you choose to engage with it. In that sense, A2 is the most complete character in the game. By this point, you'll have collected a few of the rarer chips you can equip, and you'll probably have access to a lot of money to finish and upgrade all the weapons. I opted for the Type 4O blade myself. When it's fully upgraded, it radiates electricity at all moments, and that's just so good. And shocker, it also resembles one of my favorite weapons in gaming, the Buster Blade. See, it has the materia slots and everything. In concept, this is all really fun and interesting to dive into. However, in practice, it's pretty meh, I have to admit. The chips themselves all really boil down to adding a few percentage points to non-existent stats. Do +3 attack, move at +6 speed, earn +2 experience. Some of them are a bit more engaging, offering abilities like dealing splash damage to surrounding enemies, but you can't ever really see it, so it ends up not amounting to much. For the unique, diegetic feel it brings to the experience, it's pretty lame that all it really amounts to is number changes that will feel superfluous. Other than making combat go faster, it didn't really do much for me. It's fun to experiment with like one time around, but you won't be obsessing over your equipment like you might do in a typical RPG. I guess this is an inherent issue to real-time action games. When the focus is put almost squarely on the mechanics, the ability to change the base of the design is overlooked. Your attention will primarily come down to mastering all the other systems at play here. Yeah, that makes sense and all, but if you're going to have customization, do it. Don't just half-ass it with great presentation only for it to amount to surface-level shit. Final Fantasy XVI is a game that handles this well. While most of the equipment will fall under the same trappings as NieR Automata's, a few select pieces will change the dynamic of combat. One piece I always use in my playthroughs takes the stomp mechanic and helps it realize its true potential. It doubles the standard amount of stomps, allowing you to do this 4 to 5 times before you need to land. It isn't transforming the combat due to aerial battle being so prominent in 16, but it tweaks it ever so slightly to be a more viable option. It gives me just another aspect to integrate into my playstyle, and since it's tied to an equipment piece I have, I need to make the decision to use it over something else that might be useful. NieR Automata doesn't have that kind of decision making. You'll most often choose the highest chip numbers you have and find a way to fit it on your motherboard. And while it technically does change things, it doesn't do it in meaningful ways that could help the system stand out. It sucks because for how sleek it is to interact with, I feel like these chips could have done more. Play on the fact you can store a lot of data on these things and go full matrix and have them unlock special techniques. Like, come on, if I could think it up, the devs could too. Though I should really get into the story because oh man, this shit gets pretty fucking crazy, let me tell ya. So A2's story up until the climax mainly focuses on her relationship with Pascal. It's pretty interesting that for the majority of your time playing as this character, you're tied to the only pacifist machine life form on the surface. You actually get an option to either let Pascal live or die during your first interaction with him. Jesus. Like 2B and 9S before her, she's wary of Pascal's intentions to begin with, which at least to me is a little confusing. It's probably fair to assume that A2 knows the truth about humanity, so if everyone is gone with only their data remaining on the moon, why should she put herself at risk like this? But after running a few missions for Pascal and some of the villagers, she begins to understand and become more open to the idea of machines and androids coexisting. Her relationship with their leader especially gets much deeper to a point where I'd say they even become friends. One of the side quests has you searching for a gift specifically for Pascal, and when asked why she'd help so quickly, it's because she simply owes him a favor. While it's never said out loud, this actually goes much deeper than you might initially think. It goes back to the entire philosophy of machines and their place in the world. All we know is that aliens brought them from space and started a war, though everything we've seen would suggest they're anything but what we assume they are. When you look at everything we've been through beyond their physiology, the machines have been the closest thing to human that we've seen. They have emotions, they experience pain, they have dreams and aspirations of their own. Pascal's entire character arc is meant to convey that when given the choice, machines can be so much more than what they were created for. And what's brilliant is he shows us this through his actions rather than his words. To be frank, NieR Automata isn't exactly a wordy game. Rarely will characters ever truly convey their feelings or thoughts with one another, and Pascal is no different. Instead, he shows us through his work in the village, creating and maintaining a safe place for machines who don't want to engage with the fight. A place that anyone who's open to putting their sword down can call home. This clearly leaves its mark on A2, and to be honest, is really refreshing to see. Pascal's village ends up operating as a safe haven, and it's only in this third playthrough when I realized that. All the side stuff here has everyone doing something for Pascal in an attempt to thank him for making his job easier. Machines going out of their way for each other. It just sounds so insane to think about with all the preconceived notions we have. And it's moments like this where you really start to question who's in the right here. Though unfortunately, this piece doesn't last. When A2 returns to the village after some routine missions, she finds it in tatters as it's been overrun with machine life forms. In one fell swoop, everything Pascal had built is just gone. It may seem unimportant, but to me, it was imperative I highlighted this because it emphasizes the tone and dread of this world. There's still a threat out there, so taking the time to relax, for lack of a better term, feels very weird. Seeing this relationship cultivate is heartwarming in a way I didn't think this game was capable of, which makes it hit that much harder when such a safe place is suddenly ripped away from you. The moments following the village's demise don't get much better either. The abandoned factory is eventually attacked by infected machine life forms, culminating in another large-scale battle. This time though, you actually get to control one of the Goliath-class units. Sure, it's nothing too complicated, but it's just a really cool full-circle moment. How fitting that a story that focuses on bringing androids and machines together has you take command of the very force that's been standing in your way. Pascal coming out of the water to let A2 know he's got this struck a chord with me in a way I never expected. We've got glimpses at these moments, yes, but it was all saved for this here, where Pascal breaks his vow and decimates every opponent in sight. It's almost sad in a way. I mean, yeah, the moment itself is hype as shit. Who doesn't love a good kaiju battle? But the character who had kept in touch with their humanity just put everything he stood for aside. The cause is noble, but it reminds you that this isn't a story where everyone wins. Once the battle has ended, A2 and Pascal find all the child machines dead. It's too much to bear on the pacifist machine, and he turns to his android companion and asks her to delete his memories. No joke. This is probably the hardest decision you need to make in the entire game. Both the machines connected to the network and the androids are really both grasping at straws. With the amount of time that's passed, who can say who really has a claim in this world? The one light present was Pascal, the unequivocal good guy who just wanted to help those around him. It's not an accident that he plays a major role in the game despite not choosing either side. Even when being accused of some horrible crimes, Pascal hasn't wavered and has always pursued the path of non-violence. He might not have got along great with 2B and 9S, but with A2, Pascal is able to truly form a meaningful friendship with the so-called enemy, proving that he was right to believe in his philosophy. It was for that reason I opted not to delete Pascal's memories. It seemed antithetical to what A2 would have wanted. I wouldn't imagine she would want Pascal to forget that he was right to be a pacifist in a world as cruel as this. She wouldn't want him to forget all the friends he made, for if he was truly human, he would realize that they'll always be with him. I think the saddest part, however, is that A2 doesn't want him to forget her. A2 abandoned Yorha. Up until this point, she's had nobody, and she very much acts that way. It's almost as if she hasn't ever interacted with anyone before. With Pascal, though, she was able to find a friend, a feeling that must feel so foreign to her considering how long it's been. It's selfish, yet it's not a decision based purely on greed. Erasing his memories would be the easy way out. Pascal won't know any better, and depending on where things are, might go and make the same mistakes again. Despite that, it never gets easier hearing his reaction to us sparing his memories.
How could you? A2.
The other half of this story starts with 9S waking up back at the resistance camp from those twin androids from earlier. The force that caused the tremor is this odd tower's emergence from the underground. I'm pretty sure you know where this is going. Go to each location marked on the map and complete whatever objective the game asks you to do. I have to be honest. For what is essentially the final arc of NieR Automata, this is pretty anticlimactic. What I like about it, however, is how this is tied to NieRReplicant. Yeah, There's going to be a lot of that in this part of the story. This again adapts some of the facade region and how it handled its dungeon, making you solve intricate puzzles to achieve your goal. And yeah, it's not as deep as it was in Replicant, but even still, it's homage done in such a tasteful way I can't help but appreciate it. It really reminds you of the humble beginnings of this series. Throughout this journey, the mental deterioration that 9S was suffering from only continues as with each resource center you see his innocent demeanor turn dark. I guess it wasn't an act after all. Can you really blame him? Out of all of the characters so far, there's no one who suffered the most compared to 9S. This man can't catch a W to save his life. My god. He's been dealt physical pain, requiring him to transfer his consciousness to multiple different units, which can't be easy. He's had to be on the front lines even though he's supposed to just be reporting intel. Worst of all, he lost the most important person to him. His feelings towards 2B went deeper than we knew, and he never got the chance to convey those feelings to her before her untimely demise. How else would you react if you lost the person you love most in the world? It's a tragic tale of lovers you see from both perspectives, and one that hits you right in the gutter by the time everything comes together. And yet, despite how it ended for the two, there was beauty to be found. It may be the most tragic love story of all time, but even still, that's part of what NieR Automata is, and it's in this section where we see all of that come to the front. These are probably some of the most difficult scenes to get through in the game. As 9S deactivates every resource center, you witness his pain and sorrow transform into madness. There is no more remorse from his side, and as far as he's concerned, eliminating the machines in A2 will have to suffice. By the time you reach the tower itself, 9S has fully given into all his hatred, and after learning about the truth of the black boxes, that being that they're refabricated machine cores, he has no reason to believe in anything anymore. Everything he's been doing has been in service of a lie. When he tries accessing the tower, he runs into trouble. However, the twin androids from earlier come in to lend a hand. Okay, let's talk about these guys real quick. While they're just two androids in the resistance camp, for those keenly aware, their significance holds much more weight. Project Gestalt is a phrase that's often tossed around in this universe. Basically, it was humanity's plan to return to the Earth from the original apocalypse. It's kind of hard to get into the specifics of Project Gestalt without the context of Replicant, but basically the twins, Devila and Popola present here in Automata, are only two of God knows how many androids sent to a bunch of different towns to maintain the project. However, two Devila and Popola units from another city caused a cataclysmic event that wiped out all of humanity, and ever since, this unit class has been hated by androids across the world. So why then would they help 9S in the end? Well, for that we need to dive into a major Replicant spoiler. I warned you, didn't I? So yeah, the Devila and Popola units referred to in this massive text blurb are actually the ones present here. When you reach the Shadow Lord's castle, the Devila and Popola units here reveal their true intentions. The two have been on the same side as the Shadow Lord the entire time, as it's through him and the fusing of the Grimoire, Vice, and Noir that the Gestalts confuse with their replicants, bringing back humanity. But because of their failure to keep the Shadow Lord safe, the human race became extinct. This moment, and the story shared through this text, is obvious fan service, yet it's done in the best way imaginable. Sure, just having the characters here is one thing, but this is their way of making amends. It's not even directly their fault either, which makes their actions that much more admirable. As explained through the text, they've been villainized for so long that it's totally fair to assume that they hate everyone else, but instead they take it head on and try to be the best androids they can be. The story shared here is almost as tragic as the rest of the game, and unlike the location for a meal, is one I don't think you'll enjoy if you've never played Replicant. If that's the case, this comes off as pretty jarring, seeing as these two characters aren't that important to the main story. If you're actually reading it like I am, it can take a good 10 to 20 minutes before this is over. So if you don't have that personal attachment like I do, then you won't really get much out of this. All that aside though, I mean, come on. How cool is this? Making amends thousands of years in the future is just next level acknowledgement. It's a level of detail that needs to be so carefully considered. Think about it. We have an entire storyline playing out, and it isn't until the very end here where it directly ties together. I remember being absolutely mind blown, wrecking my friends' DMs with messages asking what the fuck I just witnessed. It is without a shadow of a doubt one of the coolest tie-ins to a prequel I have ever seen. I may have ruined any chance of wanting to talk about Replicant on this channel in the future, but damn, I can't help it. This was the brain blast moment I was waiting for. It's almost your reward for seeing through this convoluted story. It does suck that it alienates like half of the player base right away for those newcomers to the series, but hey, at least it gives them an excuse for people to go and see what the Devila and Popola units from thousands of years ago did. Or, you know, watch this video, like, comment, and subscribe, folks. When you finally get access to the tower, you'll constantly change from the perspectives of both of our characters as they make their way to the tower's kill switch. The shifting perspectives fit this bombastic ending, and the visuals themselves are nothing to scoff at. Like before, it's as if entering this tower has transported us into a different realm and has the scale and feel befitting the final area of the game. The boss fight here as well is also probably the best out of the lot, splitting each section off to each of our characters, with A2 handling the melee combat and 9S in a flight unit he found. YokoTaro couldn't help himself, could he? You just gotta respect the man, I'm telling ya! In the end though, there could only be two that would face off. Once the twin robots are destroyed, the two androids square off and the truth is finally revealed.
So what? None of it matters. Or didn't you know? We aren't required in this world anymore. Humanity is extinct. That moon server you're so worried about was invented to give us androids something to fight for. And Yorha was created to perpetuate the lie. But in order to make sure no one ever learned the truth, we were designed to be killed. They built a back door in the bunker and programmed it to activate after a certain amount of time. The commander, me, 2B, sacrificial lambs. All of us. Isn't that hilarious? Doesn't it make you laugh?
Holy shit. Wouldn't shock me if you were as lost as I am, but when you consider all the previous information, it all starts to add up. We're told that there's data on the moon, but what's that for? To bring back humanity? Just to study them? Only to realize that it was just a red herring, and the data was created as a way to entice the androids to partake in the project. Everything from as soon as Project Gestalt ended has been a lie. If that's the case, that would mean that everything we've done has been for nothing. All the battles we've fought, the friends we've lost, the lives we've taken, and the relationships we've formed were in service of a hoax. Of course 9S would lose all his sanity and determine that death between him or A2 is the only way out. When you look at NieR Automata, it's always puzzled me why 2B has been the main draw, beyond her obvious design appeal. God damn, look at her strut. If we're being honest with ourselves though, she's just the catalyst for 9S. I truly believe that he's the main character of this game, and I think this finale confirms it. He's supposed to be us, the player slowly figuring out the mystery of this tale and feeling the same shock he does when you find it. By that token, 2B and A2 can be looked at as the developer, speaking to the player, letting them in on the harsh truth of the real world while also reminding us that maybe it'll all be okay. Who knows, it may even be their own way of reminding themselves that everything will be fine. You're then given a choice of who to control for the final battle, forcing you to choose a philosophy you believe in. Should the truth be set free, or should the lie continue? In the end, I don't know if there is a right choice here. Should you choose A2, she'll hack into 9S to destroy the virus that's been corrupting his data so he can be saved, and eventually makes the decision to sacrifice herself in order to destroy the tower, allowing the lie to continue. The ending title of Meaningless Code is very fitting for this. From a character perspective, I think this is the right decision. Pretty much from the onset, we've been watching 9S suffer with his knowledge of the truth. It's better to ease his pain and allow things to remain as they are. It's better knowing what may come than the unknown future that would lie ahead otherwise. Yet, I don't think this was the point of the narrative. The theme wasn't meant to be comfortable. It was meant to be a story of hard truths and how you react upon learning them. To continue perpetuating the lie Yorha is a part of just feels wrong. Which is why I believe choosing 9S in the end is the more appropriate choice. At the end of the battle, A2 goes for the final shot, only to remember 2B's words, leaving her vulnerable to 9S's strike. This leads to him being stabbed as well, and the two androids bleed out beside each other. This transitions to another text montage of 9S essentially seeing the white light, his final moments before death, reminiscing on everything he's been through, including the one he loved most. He also reveals that the tower is an arc filled with the machine's memories that's meant to be sent to start the colonization of a new world. Adam apparently extends a hand to NieR asking him to join the machines in the new world, which he accepts, confirming everything I believed. He never hated machines, he was just jealous of them. He was all alone until 2B came around, and even then, that's only one person. All he ever wanted was to be like you and me. As the arc fires into the sky, the camera pans around the world, showing that this was the true path to salvation all along. NieR Automata is a very uncomfortable story, one that challenges your ability to deal with stress and misery. It's one that revels in the sadness it evokes and isn't one meant to satisfy you entirely on the surface. But when you look closer at what it's trying to tell you, that's where it makes sense and you realize how truly special this game is. In many ways, it's mocking your conception of your typical dramatic story. There are no winners, only losers. Everything you're meant to believe in is a flat-out lie. YokoTaro isn't shy about gaslighting you, and that's honestly the narrative's greatest strength. Apparently, Taro is a creator who writes the endings first because he sees it as an easier way to provide plot twists. And yeah, I think we can all agree that this game is full of them. It wouldn't feel right if all we were doing was fighting machines for the sake of restoring humanity. That has been done before, and for this game's scope, probably been done better. I appreciate the decision to throw the player for a loop because it makes for a much more thrilling story. As I watched the credits roll for the final time, I was left overwhelmed with thoughts and emotions that were unfamiliar to me. And as I came to terms with those feelings, one thought lingered louder than all else.
Why did it matter?
I think we can all agree by now that NieR Automata is a pretty damn good game. It's one that offers a wholly unique experience. It has some of the smoothest mechanics around and offers variety in a whole bunch of ways. It takes you on an adventure to some of the most beautifully dismal locations you'll see in this space. And its story asks you to journey to uncomfortable places for you to truly understand what it's trying to say. For as great as all that sounds, in terms of that translating to real-world dollars, this usually doesn't bode well for niche little games like this. So why then was NieR Automata the exception? You know, timing is a really funny thing in this industry. Remember, this was released back in 2017, during the peak of what I like to call the Sony cinematic slop era. Titles so focused on chasing realism to a point where they just stopped feeling like games. It was a breaking point for the industry whether we realized it or not, and had things gone differently, the games we play and talk about today could have looked totally different, which is why NieR Automata's release is all that more important. There was this interview with ex-PlayStation president Shuhei Yoshida only a few months ago from Japanese site AV Watch that talked about how Japanese games struggled during the PS3 generation. It's a fascinating discussion which reveals a lot about business practices we're otherwise not privy to. But there was one quote that really grabbed the headlines.
I think the Japanese game industry was revived after NieR, so much so that I would say it was before NieR and after NieR. To put it simply, I think NieR Automata was the title that made people realize, let's make something Japanese. I think YokoTaro made it without thinking whether or not it would sell overseas. However, it was a huge hit overseas. From there, it became clear that Japanese creators were making Japanese things, and those things were selling overseas. Everyone realized that with NieR.
That is a pretty bold thing to say, especially when you consider some of the other games that released at the time. When you really start to think about it though, he might not be entirely wrong. Is it the most airtight package around? Nah, of course not. It has problems just like everything else does. But its greatest strength is that it wanted to be different. It wanted to chase its own trend, quite frankly. That's why it mattered. In any other universe, this game probably flops harder than many others have, but it worked because it came out at a time where games had started to get stagnant. It provided the jolt the industry needed so it could provide us with some of the amazing games we get to experience today. Stellar Blade, my personal game of the year from 2024, is one that wouldn't exist if not for Automata's success. And this is only the start. I could list a plethora of games that are coming out that have some sort of NieR influence. Automata has gone on to inspire creators around the world to create games that challenge players in their own unique ways. I think that's my favorite thing to come out of all this. The fact that it has given me so much to look forward to in the future. It created and filled the niche in the market, pushing it to heights we could have never imagined. It had a moment that hasn't been forgotten, and nearly 10 years later, stands as a shining example of why I love this stupid company so much. When you look at them now and all the problems they're facing, NieR Automata serves as a reminder that when done right, SquareEnix delivers experiences unlike anything you can find in the industry. Do I think it revived or saved video games? I don't know, man. That would be dealing in absolutes. But I can say with all the confidence in the world, what NieR Automata did meant something. And at the end of the day, isn't that really what it's all about? It's been a while since I've gotten to do this, edit and create a video. Life has changed, and with it, my responsibilities have too. There was a time where I thought I had to give all this up. So maybe in that sense, NieR Automata saved me. Also, please make a new game, YokoTaro. It's been a decade now. No, the delisted mobile game doesn't count. God, please, no more Call of Duty collabs. Come on, I'm begging you!
Everything that lives is designed to end. They are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. However, life is all about the struggle within this cycle. That is what we believe. Pod 153 to Pod 042. How is it going?
I am embarrassed.
Why is that?
I launched a suicide attack, and yet, here I am, still alive. I must look very silly.
Do not feel bad about it. We are alive, after all. And being alive is pretty much a constant stream of embarrassment.
That concept is a bit too abstract for me to understand at this time. I will save it in my list of things to analyze later.
Question, Pod 042. Did the data salvage restore all of their past memories?
Yes.
And are those recovered parts of the same design as previous ones?
Yes.
Then, won't that simply lead us to the same conclusion as before?
I cannot deny the possibility. However, the possibility of a different future also exists. A future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.
All right. Is everybody here?
Present and accounted for.
You betcha.
Alrighty then. Dear viewers, that's the end of the video, and me and my friends have something special to say before you go. Thank you for watching. Wait, hold on.
Oh, come on, really?
Yeah, what the hell, man?
Sorry, it's just that I noticed. I recently hit 1,000 subscribers.
Holy shit.
What? That's crazy. Dude, congratulations.
Wow. Thanks so much, you guys. And a massive thanks to all of you who have joined me on this weird little journey. When I started, I never could have imagined doing some of the things I've done and meeting some of the people I've met. And here we are, 3 years later, and I'm collaborating with my two favorite creators on the site. The world really is a funny place, isn't it, fellas?
It is definitely crazy, that's for sure. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think I speak for the both of us when I say we had an awesome time working with you.
Oh, you guys.
Mind wrapping this up, though? I've got places to be.
Yeah, just put the fries in bag and let's get out of here.
All right, that's fair. Let's take this from the top, shall we? Dear viewers, that's the end of the video, and me and my friends have something special to say before you go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell.